Hi guys, I'm Kristen. Welcome and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my DNFs from the first half of the year. So I am recording this a little bit early because I'm going to be traveling and I want to make sure that there is still content coming out for you guys throughout the time that I am traveling. So this is unfortunately not like completely accurate to the first half of the year. It is in fact only accurate up until about halfway through June. So I apologize that it's not purely the halfway through the year, but I feel like a ton of people are already doing halfway through the year content. So it's okay. It's okay. I don't expect to DNF anything in the next 2 weeks, but you never know. These are the books that I did not finish. Some of them forever, and some of them I will probably try again. Some of them are not for nows, as it were. Thank you for that term, Esme. Okay, let's get into it. I have to go backwards up my list here. So the first thing that I did not finish, that I did not love in the first half of this year was Throne of the Fallen. I don't even really think that I told anyone that I was reading this. I think it was books with Brittany I saw reading it and really liked it, and I'm really struggling to find fantasy romance that I like, and she really liked it, so I tried to pick it up and I just, not for me, let's say. I think though this is what made me realize, I think the term is shadow daddy. Are people using that term? I've heard people say that term. I think this is what they're referring to, where it's like a dark, mysterious, not totally good guy, whatever, yeah, shadow daddy. I am not into shadow daddies as the male love interest, I have decided, and this book helped me realize that. So anyway, yeah, Throne of the Fallen, not for me. Shadow daddies, no thank you. Not at this point in my reading journey, let's say. In the past, for sure. The Throne of Five Winds, this one I think is a forever DNF. This was one of my priority reads for the year. It was a TBR vet. I think I'm actually going to exchange it for something else because I picked it up, but at a time when I had a bunch of other things, I wound up prioritizing the other things, and then I lost my copy, and then my library got rid of their library copies. So I'm actually just going to exchange it for something else on my priority reads. It was very, very slowly written, the first chapter maybe that I read, and it was a very, very overly descriptive, which I had heard was part of why people didn't totally gel with this book. So it just didn't happen for me in the moment, and unfortunately it's not going to happen, I think, moving forward because of my library thing. Okay, this one is probably it's a DNF because, to be honest, I don't see myself picking it up in the next couple weeks, and that's Illborn, which is another one of my, actually I think it was also a TBR vet. It's one of my priority reads for the year. It was a TBR vet. I picked it up in January, I think, and I have tried to pick it up a couple times here and there since then, and it just hasn't happened. And I gave myself until the end of June to be like, I'm either going to read this or I'm going to move on, and it's not happening. It's like a four chosen one situation where magic is supposed to it's not good in this world, and these people start getting all a shared vision, and there's a religious element that I think are essentially hunting them down. That's from what I have read. I think that is what the setup is. And I just didn't like the way the characters were, the archetypes sort of that the characters were. There's two women and two men, and with the two men, it's very obvious, more of a cowardly, not physical, wimpier kind of a guy, and then a very I'm a gruff soldier type, and I don't want to do whatever it is that my role was supposed to be. I want to be a tough soldier guy. And then it was kind of the same with the women, where one was very religious, wants to give herself over to essentially the convent kind of a thing, and then the other one was kind of becoming this super sensual, using her powers to, it's a word, not glamour, but glamour men to be really more interested in her. And yeah, so it just I just didn't like that. The writing wasn't working for me, let's just say. I don't want to harp on it too much because this is a debut. It's a self-published originally debut as well. So I don't want to harp on the faults with it. I just say that maybe that story and that setup really, really works for you. It wasn't working for me, and the writing didn't capture me. And so I'm just going to move on, I think. I'm not going to say never, but it's not happening this year. The Grace of Kings is a not for now. It's a not for now. I've picked it up. I've made a solid, what I thought was a solid stretch through it on audiobook, and then I realized I was only 28% of the way in or something like that. And I just don't know that it's in my scope right now. I'm not saying not happening. I also think too that my expectations about how it was going to be written were a little bit different than the reality. And that's tough because I think it's hard to describe. I do know that people it's not like I was getting the wrong impression. I just don't think that people know how to talk about how this is written, which is a very, very pulled back scope of events happening, and we like flip through characters as we need over this like kind of tumultuous political time as things are changing. Generally, people say that the audio helps get them through. They tend to immersion read it as well. So I think I'm gonna save this for a time when I have like less other books that I'm trying to juggle. Maybe I want to like tick off a few more of my priority reads. Maybe towards the latter half of the year, I like slow down in my expectations a little bit and I just like read one book at a time, you know? So not for now. I would still like to read it this year though. The Foxwife. I kind of want this also to be a not for now. This is a new release this year, and it is a more historical fiction than historical fantasy. And we're following two characters, one of whom is a fox person, and they're looking for revenge after their child was killed, which is a challenging topic for me. I didn't mention the child that was killed in Illborn. That was a really, really tough prologue to read for me at the time. So if you're a mother, know that going into it. Especially, I feel like mothers of like very young infants, that can be a little bit challenging with Illborn and with this. There was nothing wrong with it. So as I was reading it, it was like, this is totally fine. But again, I had a couple other things on the go at the time, and it just didn't capture me. And it was one of those books that I felt like at the time where like I could easily put this down and like never think about it again. Or I could just keep reading and be like, yes, that was done, book read, kind of a thing. Like that was the feeling where it didn't super grab my attention, but I do want to give it another shot. So this one I think also is going to be a not for now. Feybound. I have this written down as a not for now, but you know what? Oh, I don't know. I have trouble like cutting it totally. I've tried this in both formats. I've tried this in the audio, or I tried this first in the ebook, wasn't feeling it, tried the audio to see if that would get me a little bit further. I still have not reached the point where they find the Fae, and that's the whole setup. So we're following like these elves, these two sisters. One is like very into the military, and she makes a big mistake, like her day one of this like new promotion, and it results in a lot of people being killed. Or a lot of elves being killed. And so she gets exiled. Her sister then, who's like a prophecy girl, takes off to sort of try to find her. And she is traveling with one of the other sisters, like lieutenants, a very loyal lieutenant. That's a setup. And that in the woods, they wind up finding the Fae world, which the Fae are supposed to be totally extinct. And that's the whole like da-da-da-da. And I still hadn't gotten to the point where they found the Fae. I didn't love the writing. I didn't love the dialogue between the prophecy sister and the lieutenant that she's traveling with, who's obviously going to be a love interest. There's a thing with like a magical animal here that I think is going to be very relevant, and I didn't like how casually they kept talking about like slaughtering this animal in order to like obtain the magic from it. It was just very blasé. Usually that doesn't bother me, but it was so not done in a humane way even at all. I feel like I want to at least get to the Fae part in order to decide properly if it's for me. But I do also feel like the reviews or like the reception for this has been kind of just fine. Like, I feel like people are just being like, yeah. And some people like it a little bit more, and some people like it a little bit less. But it hasn't been like wowing people. And so then I'm like, maybe I'm not, I also feel like I'm probably not missing out on much. I feel bad saying that. The Ballad of Never After. Yeah, I don't care. Once Upon a Broken Heart was not the super great, charming, delightful young adult book that I had been led to believe that it was going to be. It didn't work for me. I picked up The Ballad of Never After really just because I had no other books at the time, and I cared even less. And I didn't even want to pick it up in the moment when I picked it up. This shouldn't even count as a DNF, to be fair. The Pariah is another priority read. I don't even really know that this should count as a DNF, and I think technically it's going to be a not for now, because I'll probably go back and try it again. I think I'm going to try to get a copy of the ebook. The audiobook was a little bit slow for me. This is a new series start for the year, the Covenant series, I believe. We're following a main character who is like part of a thieving bandit group, and I think he gets sucked into political intrigue. I I don't remember even what the setup for this is. I think it's supposed to be good in terms of like morally gray. I have generally heard the feedback in like fine, technically really great, but a little bit slow and a little bit boring. And I could see that from the first little bit that I had read, maybe a chapter or a chapter and a half in, perhaps. I can see that that is possibly happening. I think for like books that tend to be a little bit more political, where they're like mentioning like different titles and different like dukes and whatever and the land that they hold and political maneuvering, I think is a little bit hard for me on audiobook. So it's tough because I have more audiobook time to read, so I tend to like request audiobook copies of things, but sometimes it's not giving the book a fair shot, and I think that's probably the case in this book. Hang the Moon was a contemporary romance book. It was like the second book after, I don't know the series, but it was the Written in the Stars one, and we were following the brother and one of the girls from the first book, one of the women from the first book, her best friend. So this one I just found really boring, and I didn't really care about I didn't feel like there was actually any tension between the two characters. Like the setup was like he was going to try to prove to her that romance was real. She is suddenly like doesn't believe in love anymore, and there was no tension between them whatsoever. One for my enemy. I didn't mention that I was going to try to read this. It was really a product of not having anything available in the moment. You know that time when you're like a library reader and you've like finished what you have and you don't have anything lined up, or maybe you do, but you're like not quite ready to pick them up yet. Something like that. And it was available on Scribd. And even the other things that I had like available on Scribd, like Illborn and The Grace of Kings, like also didn't feel right in the moment. So I tried this and I did not like the writing style. This is I think a Romeo and Juliet retelling. So star-crossed loves with a magical component. I did not get very far, and I just really, really was not gelling with the writing style. So it wasn't an intentional pickup, and it wasn't something that kept me so enthralled that I decided to keep reading. Very straightforward DNF. And the last one here, which I want to say is a not for now, because it was kind of an unintentional DNF, and that is a memory called Empire. So I'm sorry for the people who really want me to read this, or like who were like anticipating or worried about what I would think. I didn't hate it. I was quite captured for the first third. I think I'm about 2/3 of the way in, and I wish that I was further in, let's say that, where I was really, really caught up in the mystery. Everything happens really quickly. This is a sci-fi setting where our main character is a new ambassador at this planet, part of like this vast empire, and she's from like a ship colony. So she's this ship colony's ambassador on this planet that's like the homeland of this like vast empire. And her predecessor is dead upon arrival. They request a new ambassador. When she gets there, she finds out that the old ambassador has died, and she has to figure out if there was like suspicious circumstances. Things start really like rapid fire happening with like some obvious conspiracy, and things aren't like lining up with why he died, and there's like information that maybe he gave away that he shouldn't have, and it's like everything happens really, really, really quickly. As always, someone is joining me for the last little bit in our video. So I didn't hate A Memory Called Empire, and I'm not done with it. I think I will try this again. It just kind of stalled out where the first half like raced through the plot, and I was like really, really excited, and the world was really complicated and the politics were really complicated, and I wasn't quite following along, but I was at least interested, and then the plot started to like really, and the pace started to really, really slow down and drag. That's when I switched from the audio to the ebook in an attempt to try to follow the plot and the politics a little bit more. It's a lot more intellectual and like thinky than I usually am looking for, particularly in a sci-fi book. But I'm open to giving this another go. I don't think I will reread the whole thing. I think I will probably, if I do it within the next couple months, I think I can probably pick up where I left off and be just as able to follow along as I was. So I don't want to leave this too long to get back to it, but it is a not for now, unfortunately. All right, I think those are all of the books that I have not for now'd or did not finish so far in this year. Hopefully we have less in the second half of the year, but honestly, like, I don't really care. if a book isn't working for me, I think it's a really good thing to be able to put it down and move on to something else. Reading, I'm fighting someone over the tripod. Reading for me is about enjoyment. And so if I'm not enjoying something, I don't want to have to struggle through it. I am a lot more open to like the not for now than I would have been in the past, because I feel like so much more I'm realizing that there are times and places for certain books, moods for certain books, and that it's not giving it a fair shot to be like, that didn't work for me and never return. If one's, and I'm super inspired by like Books with Brittany on this, where I think she recently picked up the 3-Body Problem for like the 3rd time and like wound up absolutely loving it. So something that I would like to also aspire to is to give things second shots here and there and see if they work in different moods. So that is the first half of the year DNFs for me. If you appreciate what I do or enjoy my content here, please do a like and subscribe if you would like to. It really helps me out. And if you want to leave an emoji, I didn't think about this ahead of time. Do something space related for a memory called Empire. Could be an alien. I don't know if there's a spaceship one. Something space. It could be star, moon, whatever. Hit me up with your space emojis and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys. Have a great day.